where you are. Yeah, my name is Dominic Afwang. I am your host and moderator for today. Welcome to the second installment of U Talks Climate Action Series. So this climate action initiative is brought to you by the Upsilon Climate Action Network of the Upsilon Sigma Phi fraternity. So this program is open to the public. It's free. However, we do encourage all the participants to donate whatever amount to a green organization of your choice. In this platform, we discuss topics affecting the environment that lead to climate change and how it affects all of us today. And if you've been following the news lately, the UN actually released a report, just a few days ago that should have all of us terrified. So according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the Earth will be 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer by 2030. So what does this mean? So we are already experiencing the adverse effects of climate change, which is drying out several areas of the planet. In fact, as we speak now, an unprecedented wildfire is raging in Siberia. And although it's not being reported here in the Philippines, right, but this wildfire is bigger than all the forest fires happening in the world. So it's not only in Siberia. There are historic fires ongoing now in Turkey, Greece, and Italy. And that is why it is important to have a platform such as ours to make more people aware of climate change. And hopefully by hearing from people such as our main speaker today, we would all be inspired to contribute and do something to help turn the tide of climate change. But before we give the floor to him, let me first introduce the brains behind this project, my kabatch, Norman Garcia, 95, to tell us more about climate change and the truth in 10. So earlier I was telling the group, in the first installment of the Climate Action Series, I shared a few anecdotes about Norman, but he doesn't want to be embarrassed today. So he asked me, or he actually commanded me to stick to the script. So anyway, let me tell you more about Norman. So he was personally trained by former U.S. Vice President Al Gore and the Climate Reality Project, where he now serves as climate reality leader. Norman completed his civil engineering degree at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He is currently based in Winnipeg, Canada, where he practices residential building energy modeling and net zero energy design. He trains in endurance races. Kaya kita nyo, very fit si Norman. He trains in endurance races and is a plant-based and is on a plant-based nutrition diet, so to reduce food carbon footprint. So friends, please welcome my kabatch, Norman Garcia.
Oops, a minute. Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes, Bash, we
okay.
can see.
So thank you, Dominic. So I'm just gonna present a truth in 10. So this is the first picture of the Earth fully illuminated that any of us ever saw. It was taken from the last of the Apollo missions, and it changed the way that humanity thought about our common home. So it reminds us that we're all connected and that our actions have an impact on our planet. So there are three questions about the climate crisis. So must we change? Can we change? Will we change? First of all, must we change? So the scientific community all around the world has been telling us for a long time that yes, we must change. So the sky is not vast and limitless expanse the way it appears to us. In reality, there's just a thin shell of atmosphere surrounding the planet. So energy from the sun comes from the earth, comes to earth in the form of light and warms up the planet. Some of that heat is re-radiated from the earth back into the space, and some of that outgoing heat is trapped by the greenhouse gas layer. But now we are making that layer much thicker, so more heat is trapped. So fossil fuels still provide more than 80% of the world's energy. Fossil fuel use and emissions have gone up dramatically since World War II. And 19 of the 20 hottest years ever measured with instruments have been steadily increasing since 2002. And the 7 hottest of all have been in the last 7 years. So definitely this year, 2021, is a record-breaking year. So when I update this slide next year, 2021 will definitely be here. So Typhoon Vamco or Ulysses hit the Philippines hard in 2020, in which 231,000 were evacuated and at least 101 people were killed. So Japan had 8 million people ordered to evacuate during Typhoon Hagibis in 2019. And Hurricane Katrina killed an estimated 1,100 people in 2005. So in 2020, supports for this railroad track in Kenya were taken away. So the extra heat energy that is pulling more evaporation of the oceans and feeding the storms is also pulling the soil moisture out of the ground. So more than 100 people in Africa, 100 million people in Africa are facing insecurity now in significant measure because of the drought. So global systems such as food supply, water, global health are vulnerable to disruption and instability because of climate change. So we now have climate refugees. So severe droughts have accelerated regional conflicts, forcing more people to migrate to nearby countries. So this was a picture taken on the surface of Greenland not long ago. So you can see how different it is from what we expect there. So Kiribati in the low-lying Pacific Islands is the first nation to buy land in another country for all their people to move. In 2021, Shell announced that its total oil production peaked in 2019. Now, let's talk about plastics. So the annual production of plastics is going up and up. So if the plastic industry grows as planned, it could emit over 1.3 billion metric tons of CO2 by 2030 and more than 2.8 billion metric tons by 2050. So here are the plastics ever made, and here's the amount that's been recycled. So it's a very, very small amount. So more than that has been burned, or incinerated, which create air pollution. And this is all of the plastics that's already in the ocean and landfill. The CO2 that comes from making of plastic is equivalent to 189 large coal-burning power plants. So it's that big. So we have an opportunity to make the right choice. And the good news is we have the solutions available. So 21 years ago, the best projections for wind energy told us that we could reach 30 gigawatts of wind energy by 2010. Well, we have beaten that mark by 24 times over. So renewable produced more than 50% of all Germany's electricity last year. And a steel mill in Sweden that has been operating for 400 years have now started to use green hydrogen and cut emissions by significantly. So with solar, the story is even more inspiring. So again, 19 years ago, the best study available predicted that we might be able to install 1 gigawatt of solar electricity per year by the year 2010. Well, when the 2010 rolled around, we beat that goal by 17 times over. So what about this past year? So we beat that goal by an incredible 132 times over. So Saudi Arabia, so this is definitely surprising. So which has more oil than almost all other countries, is already seeing the handwriting on the wall. They have been announced a plan to massively increase their production of solar electricity. So just like wind, we're not going to run out of solar energy, which we receive enough to fill all the world's energy needs. So we just need to capture the solar energy. So there are a lot of places, cities, and nations that are passing laws requiring the phase out of internal combustion engines, and all of these countries have set dates for phasing out. The investment in this transition in global energy is going up very dramatically, and we're seeing a lot of new commitments every day. Now, More Power in Iloilo has recently announced it is now the only electric distributor that is 100% renewable energy and the cheapest in the country at 6.5 pesos per kilowatt hour for residential customers for the month of July. And almost 300 global companies have already committed to get only 100% renewable energy for their businesses. And these are many of these companies portrayed on screen. And as you can see, these logos of companies are arranged alphabetically. Our Unilever, where our speaker today is from, is on the second to the last line. Yeah, so you'll see the Unilever logo there, and this among the many global companies that have committed to the Paris Agreement commitments. And finally, the other big success story is that every nation in the world agreed in Paris to go net zero greenhouse gas emissions by mid-century or 2015. Now, we're seeing the focus on the real plans to actually get there. So please, after this youth talk, we hope we inspire you to use your voice, your vote, and your choices in your life. So speak truth to power like your world depends on it. So thank you for this opportunity, and I now turn over the hosting back for our main talk.
So thank you, Norman, for sharing those inspiring stories and for mentioning the Paris Agreement. Actually, in our last session, in the last installment of the Climate Action Series, we heard from USEC Wimpy Fuentebella, Batch 93, where he talked to us about how the government is contributing, or our government is contributing to that Paris Agreement, and it is both surprising and reassuring to note that we are actually way ahead of our Asian neighbors as far as green sources of energy are concerned. But today, it would be good to hear from the private sector naman. So earlier, Norman showed a list of companies who are helping in achieving those Paris Agreement targets. But today, right? We'd like to hear from the private sector on sustainability and how global conglomerates can adopt ethical and sustainable practices to lessen or mitigate environmental damage. And one such global conglomerate, as pointed out by Norman earlier, is Unilever. Ed Sunico, 86, is the Vice President for Communication of Southeast Asia, and concurrently heads the Sustainable Business and Communications function of Unilever Philippines. Handling corporate affairs and championing sustainability, Ed translates performance into purpose as he leads Unilever's purpose-led and the future fit. Sorry, let me read that again. Ed translates performance into purpose as he leads Unilever's purpose-led and future fit. So his organization has consistently been named as a leader in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index as well as the Globe Scan Sustainability Leaders Survey. Unilever Philippines also won the Top Sustainability Award from the 2018 Asia CEO Awards and is named one of the best workplaces by HR Asia. So I guess there's a lot of Brads working there. Anyway, Ed began his career in Unilever in 1991 and has worked in various roles in customer development and media. So friends, please welcome Mr. Ed Sunico.
Good morning, good evening. Yeah, so as I put up my slide, let me again introduce myself. I'm Ed Sunico. I'm a proud member of Upsilon Batch 86. And I'm also leading the sustainable business and communications for Unilever Philippines. That's why I'm particularly happy that when two of my beloved institutions, Upsilon and Unilever, somehow merged under the Upsilon can, I've definitely raised my hand. In the Upsilon, one of our goals is to, as stipulated in our credo, is to help lead for economic stability. And to do that, we have to face the issue of climate change, because indeed climate change is now considered as one of the greatest threats to economic stability, given its impact to the environment, impact to people's livelihood, and well-being in general. Now, in Unilever, we know that the implication of climate change for our business and our consumers in general will be profound. It is a threat to our entire value chain, from how we grow our raw materials to whether there's going to be clean water available for consumers to use our regular products, like cleaning product, shampoo, and that sort. So as a company, we consider climate change as the biggest long-term risk to our business. Now, FMCG companies like Unilever, because of our very wide footprint, our products being in 9 out of 10 homes, would have a big responsibility to ensure that we don't add to the problem, and also to prove that we are also capable of operating at net zero impact to the environment. So thank you for this opportunity to share with you how we're doing this through our climate transition action plan. Next slide. Before that, let me give you a brief introduction of Unilever in the Philippines. While Unilever is a global company, we see ourselves very much a Filipino company with a very deep history and roots in Manila, where we first established our office back in 1927. And so that's more than 95 years already. And that's where we still operate until now. Today we're operating in Manila, not just in Manila, but also in Cavite for our foods factory, in Pasig for our Selecta ice cream factory. We have our head office in Taguig, and we have our mega distribution center in Cabuyao. And practically everywhere in the country through our network of distributors and partners, we're practically all over the country. And our products basically falls under 3 main divisions: beauty and personal care. We have the foods and refreshment side, and then we have home care. And these are some of the products, most popular brands that we have. And like I said, we're proud that these brands will, basically allows us to be present in your home in 9 out of 10 Filipino homes. Next slide. So we're also a company that's born out of purpose. A bit of history: over 100 years ago, yung founder namin, William Lever, started actually his own business by making something as simple as toilet soap. And he did that because he wanted to fight cholera at that time, which is a pandemic in the slums of Britain, where he was residing. And today something as simple as hand washing soap is also making a difference, against COVID and against any pandemic. And just as William Lever has envisioned to make cleanliness commonplace, today we believe that the only way towards a better future is if we make also sustainable living commonplace as well. And as a company, we are still guided by this purpose. We believe that through this purpose, brands grow, people will thrive, and companies will last. Locally, we translate that into winning with purpose, which is a framework that defines the way we want to win through our brands, differentiated again by purpose. Also looking at progressive platforms in both market development and also digital platforms. And looking also at the portfolio of categories and channels for today and in the future. And of course, people with the right future skills and capabilities. I'll show you a 3-4 minute video of what this winning purpose is all about. Can you play the video, please?
For almost 100 years, Unilever has grown with the Filipino people. Unilever is more than just a brand. It is in our homes, it is in our lives. Unilever is Filipino. A company that served generations. A heritage built on sama-sama, tulong-tulong, and malasakit.
With our products present in 9 out of 10 Filipino homes, we transform the lives of almost every Filipino. And in serving them well, the Filipinos have trusted us, growing our business from our humble beginnings to now being one of the strongest Unilever companies in the world.
So for us to be the company that serves every Filipino in the next decade, Unilever Philippines will embark on a transformation guided by our one big ambition. At the heart of this transformation will be delivering the purpose of every Unilever brand and every Unilever employee.
My personal purpose is to bring out the confidence of people around me. That's why I make time to fulfill this purpose also outside of work. I'm so happy that Unilever allows me to work on a brand that also brings out confidence in people.
I'm very lucky that I'm working with a brand that is very responsible. Everything that you do not only benefits yourself, but has a huge impact on the people that you serve.
We will champion a sustainable supply chain enabled by technology to ensure that we deliver high-quality products that is accessible to all and does not cost the earth.
Our purpose-driven brands, our purpose-driven people, our inclusive business models, and our progressive platforms will be the foundations that will allow us to live our purpose of improving the lives of 100 million Filipinos.
A society with no stereotypes.
Growing a new generation of self-assured and empowered women.
A zero-waste Philippines.
This is my purpose too. Managing supply chain goes beyond running efficient factories. It's about creating opportunities for growth.
For us, it is also about supplying products that are safe for our consumers and for us to produce them at best quality, available anytime and anywhere, and the best value for money.
Making high-quality, affordable products available on time, every time.
Creating value for sustainable, profitable growth.
Creating leaders for today and the future.
Ang purpose ko ay mas makatulong pa sa mas maraming sari-sari store.
Bawat isang tindahan, isang kabuhayan.
Bringing superior science to everyday life.
This is what I will do for the Philippines. This is what I will do as a Filipino.
This purpose
is mine too.
This purpose is mine too. This purpose
is mine too.
This purpose is mine too.
This purpose is mine too.
Our work isn't done until we serve 100 million Filipinos from all walks of life. Join me in this movement for a bigger, better Unilever and a better Philippines.
Yeah, so I thought it was important to start the discussion on climate action with the company's purpose, because if it's not integrated into the DNA of the company, then efforts will be at best probably a CSR activity, not a critical part of the business, but just a way to show that we're doing something responsibly, if not for PR purposes. This is not the way to create an impact. Climate action must be an integral part of the company's operations and also an enabler for growth. Yep, next slide. And today, while I think the pandemic seems to be the biggest challenge that we have, two of the biggest threats that we're still facing remains to be, number one, climate change, and second is social inequality. Now, both are deeply connected. Climate change is not just an environmental concern, but it's also very much a social issue, a social one, especially when it starts to unfairly impact the lives and livelihood of specific groups of people in the society. Now, climate change also has a serious impact to our business and our consumers. It's a threat to the entire value chain, from the way our raw material sourcing is made to our consumers' use of our products. So without real full-scale action, climate change is the biggest long-term risk, as I said, to our business. And in December 2020, we announced our Climate Transition Action Plan, which basically puts forward our ambitious emissions reduction targets. Zero emissions from our operations by 2030, and net zero across our entire value chain by 2039. Next slide. So basically, this plan sets out how we will reduce our emissions consistent or even ahead of the Paris Agreement. And as a reminder, the target is to substantially reduce and limit our global greenhouse emissions increase to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial level. Our aim actually is to be ahead of that and set out a net zero emissions plan. And basically, we're tackling it in 4 different ways. First, we want to eliminate our emissions from our own operations. Second, through our value chain, so reducing emissions to our suppliers and partners. And third, by integrating climate action into our brands, into our brand innovation. And finally, influencing the wider society. So let me go through each, starting with operations. Yeah, so operations contributes actually a very small share of our value chain emissions, contrary to what probably people are thinking. Emissions for our factories and from our offices make up approximately just 2% of our footprint. But it's an area where we have direct control. So, for example, moving already to 100% renewable grid electricity is an example of how we did that already. But there's still work to be done on heat, for instance, or cooling sources within the factory. Increasing energy efficiency is still work in progress. So what actions are we taking here? Number one, we want to optimize our energy demand through energy efficiency programs, and later on I'll show you some examples of that. Second, we want to transition energy sources to renewables, not just Unilever, but including all the partners that we work with. Third, we want to transition heating sources to renewable versus yung typical use of fossil fuel. Fourth, we want to eliminate all remaining HFC refrigerants from our cooling systems, replacing them with low GWP, or global warming potential refrigerants, such as hydrocarbons, ammonia, and CO2. And then fifth, food waste needs to be half for food waste from our operations needs to be half by 2025. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell, how we intend to do the climate action plan to our operations. Yep. Next slide. Yeah. So locally, I think I'm happy to say that we have already achieved 100% renewable grid electricity way back in 2017, partnering with First Gen. So we have extended this to actually our third-party partners already, including our mega distribution center, and within the year or two, also our cold storage depots across the country. As you know, Unilever has the biggest share of ice cream in the country, and therefore cold storage depots actually play a big part of our climate action transition plan. Now, for any residuals, like in very small depots, we try to offset that with carbon credits. Now, for sources of renewable heat, we're also initiating the recovery of used oil from, for example, our Unilever Food Solutions and our Unilever Selecta partners to use as biofuel in our factories. So, for example, yung mga mantika na nagagamit ng aming mga customer to our Unilever Food Solution, we try to retrieve that and use that as biofuel as well in our factories. Now, we also continue to initiate programs to reduce energy demand within our operations. So examples are programs that absorb or capture heat from refrigeration system to preheat our boilers. So less fuel is needed, thereby reducing energy consumption and CO2 emissions. And lastly, in reducing food waste from our operations, we are actively participating with the government's task force against hunger, being led by Secretary Nograles, and working with Rise Against Hunger, an NGO that institutionalizes food banking. This basically ensures that no food from the operations goes to waste, and that we're able to save and use this for humanitarian efforts, especially during calamities. Yep, next slide. Now, for our value chain, reducing emissions here is about targeted interventions. Both yung upstream, meaning our raw materials, which comprise almost half of our controllable greenhouse gas emissions, and also downstream, which includes yung logistics, distribution networks, and also our packaging. Now, for raw materials, raw material related emissions, this is something that is quite bold. We plan to put greenhouse reduction roadmaps for all key materials and ingredients, and we will include that in the performance metrics of our suppliers. So if you're a supplier of Unilever, a greenhouse reduction roadmap is expected before you can actually be a supplier of the company. And the key here is to have a transparent and traceable supply chain that can independently be verified. And of course, related to this is zero deforestation by 2023, covering our key commodity crops. Our key commodity crops being palm oil, paper, soy, cocoa, and tea. Second, yung logistics and distribution, which accounts to, ito medyo malaki, 15% of our greenhouse gas footprint. Because on FMCG, basically, you try to cover as much stores as you can through our distributor network, and you try to deliver to the last mile, which is basically to the household. The impact of logistics can be quite significant. And our plan here is to include travel distance optimization, use of electric vehicles, and also using cleaner and newer technologies for our refrigerated and frozen deliveries. And third, finally, critical issue, especially in our part of the world, is plastic waste. Pinakita ni Norman kanina. We have set very ambitious targets here. We are committed to make 100% of our packaging reusable, recyclable, and compostable. And also incorporating recycled plastic and reducing the use of virgin plastic by half. And also, I think a bigger ambition is to make sure that we collect and we process more plastic packaging waste than what we sell to the market. Yeah, so these are the commitments that we're doing as part of our value chain. Next. So these are some of the examples, no, of how we're already translating these commitments on the ground. First, we developed the Unilever Sustainable Agricode. And basically to our farmers, given to our farmers and to our suppliers, this is a set of rigorous standards which would push for improvements across our supply chain. Yeah, so in here, basically we define sustainable sourcing using various social, economic, and environmental indicators. It's quite extensive, no? Our Sustainable Agricode defines sustainable sourcing using 11 different parameters in social, economic, and environmental indicators, including soil health, soil loss, biodiversity, water use. Just to cite an example. So very comprehensive set of metrics for our smallholder farmer partners. Our packaging now contributes almost 10% of our emissions. And in here, we follow a framework of the one in the middle, a framework of better, less, and no plastic. So better plastic basically covers the use of more recyclable materials, no? Or PCR, recycled content. And these are some of the examples of products already using 100 post-consumer recycled plastic. So if you see that in the supermarkets, you can be assured na yung plastic na ginamit dyan, recycled plastic already. And we'll have more of that, no, in the coming weeks and months. Now, less plastic naman means reducing the amount of plastic used in our packaging. So examples of that can be optimization through lightweighting. So it can be the same size, pero mas magaan siya. Going, of course, for smaller or more compact packaging. And also moving to concentrates. Also avoiding unnecessary underfilling. Kasi for example, if you buy in supermarkets, you try to notice the pack. Sometimes ganyan kalaki yung bote, pero titignan mo 60% lang yung laman, no? May 40% na headroom. We try to have a standard even for the headroom to make sure that you just optimize that for the requirements of handling, rather than for the perception of the packaging being big. Yeah. So and then for logistics, and no plastic basically means exploring naman alternative packaging materials or product delivery systems like refilling. And in here we are pushing the FDA to make refilling a standard or one of the options for delivery of products. You'll be surprised that the Philippines still doesn't have a refilling guidelines. And we've been fighting the FDA to make sure that these refilling guidelines be put on paper the soonest time possible, so that manufacturers like Unilever, P&G, Nestle, and local companies would have this option as a way for them to deliver their products with zero packaging. And then last point is for logistics. At the last part, here's an example of an initiative to reduce total emissions from our distribution network through route optimization. Almost all our partners, distributors, uses a transportation and logistics management system. Basically helps them in maximizing yung stock delivery, while also optimizing their truck routes from their warehouse to the sari-sari stores. So making sure optimize talaga and we don't waste any logistical cost. This is really proven to significantly reduce yung not just fuel costs, but also of course the greenhouse gas emissions coming from these operations over time. Yep, next. Okay, now of course Unilever is a branded company. So core of our business are the brands and the products that we sell. And it's important that the brands also integrate emission targets within their innovation and marketing plans. We have evidence that the brands that can actually demonstrate their environmental impact are better positioned to win in the marketplace. No? Yan yung mas mabenta. So for example, innovation around concentration can reduce emissions of some of our products by up to 60%. And we have launched ultra-concentrated laundry liquid and fabric conditioners and also dilutable products in some markets, and have shown significant emission reductions while delivering a great consumer experience. Now, we also plan to drive consumer behavior change, no? To basically help them lower their greenhouse gas footprint by reducing food waste, choosing plant-based foods. Si Norman, I heard, is now into plant-based diet, very relevant for you, and also providing transparent information about greenhouse gas footprint of the products that they purchase. So in the coming months, I hope, not years, pag bumili ka ng Unilever product, sometimes you get at the back of label or front of label, you see a nutrient profile. On top of that, you'll see a greenhouse gas footprint profile that, if you buy this is the amount of emissions that you're actually using. So para maging mas conscious din yung mga consumers natin about their contribution, no, to reducing emissions, no, as a whole. Here are just some of the, let's go to the next slide. Some examples of what the brands are doing. Knorr, is a leading food transformation brand, and it has a food transformation agenda. It's pushing for more plant-based eating. As an example, nilaunch namin yung Makulay ang Buhay, which is a TV program in GMA7, which basically talks about eating right with more variety and taking care of one's health. Now, we also campaign for Future 50 Foods, no? Which basically identifies ano yung 50 plant-based foods that can boost the nutritional value of our meals, no, while reducing the environmental impact of our food supply. You'll be surprised that basically the whole logic of a plant-based diet is the reality that food is responsible for 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions, and yung of that 30, livestock or meat produce is 25% of that. Yeah, so many foods that we eat actually take too much water, land, and basically emit high amount of greenhouse gas emissions. Now, one concern also is that we basically grow and eat the same food over and over again. We know that 75% of our entire food system is made up of only 12 plants and 5 animals, no? Out of the probably 1,000 or more, or hundreds of food varieties that we have. Definitely, we're not getting the benefits from the food diversity and to help address malnutrition. And basically, the way we grow and produce our food is often harmful to the environment. Now, yung nasa gitna, that's Selecta. Selecta is basically racing towards a zero emissions by transforming its cold chain. Starting in 2010, actually, when you go to the 7-Eleven and look at the freezers there, we started back in 2010 to convert that to a non-HFC freezer. And to date, we're already at 81%, on our way to 100% green freezers by 2025. Now, for home care, we're moving to eliminate the use of fossil fuel in the manufacture of cleaning products. Yung Breeze liquid, for instance, has already shifted to formulations that use less food oil cleaning agents. And basically, we replaced that already with plant-based and more weight-efficient cleaning agents. Yung Surf and Comfort fabric conditioner uses biodegradable active ingredients, as an example. So that's what we're doing locally. Next slide. Yeah, so like I said, yung wider influence to society is also a part of the plan, since almost 2/3 of our greenhouse gas emissions are coming from consumers and the way they use our products, where we have less control of. It's very important that we're able to influence their buying and usage behavior through advocacy and partnerships. And go to the next slide. And here are just some of the local examples of how we're doing our advocacy work. We have active engagement with industry-led discourse related to climate transformation. So for example, we spoke about plant-based eating and food transformation during the DTI conference, and also during the Philippine Association of Nutrition webinar series. We also piloted a no plastic delivery system called the Refillery, with the intent of engaging activist citizens around the discussion of no plastic delivery methods, and also basically to influence FDA. Our refillery pilot actually prompted FDA already to come up with a new regulatory guideline. So may draft na. Took them a while. Actually took them more than a year. Pero at least meron ng draft. And probably the next few months we'll have finally a regulatory guidelines around refilling. And last, we also continue to engage key stakeholders. No? And here's a recent tweet from the British ambassador about our intent to work with him on climate change, in preparation for COP26. And last, today I think is a great example of how do we engage with activist citizens. No? Upsilon Climate Action Network is a group of activist citizens. It's a very important channel for us to drive our advocacy efforts. In the recent trust survey, yung activist citizens actually ranks amongst the highest sources of trust, higher than media, higher than government. Pardon for the government officials in the room, but activist citizens are trusted more than media and government, and therefore we really have to engage with them. So consumer listens to purpose-driven people, and it's important that we engage with them in our advocacy plans. Yeah, so that basically, last slide, completes our approach to climate action through our operations, our value chain, our brands, and the influence we create in the society. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share our commitments and our plans on sustainable value chain and climate action. And I think it's a hope that, by being transparent, other businesses will also share our confidence, and start their basically their climate transition journey. That's it. Maraming salamat. Thank you. Back to the host.
Thank you, Senior Brad. Ed? So we scheduled this for an hour. However, I think it's okay lang if we go over time. No, there are a lot of questions here that we would be reading to our main speaker, Ed Sunico. But let me just say before I read these questions, Senior Brad, the things that you shared are actually very inspiring. So I'm in supply chain actually. So the things you shared about logistics, about reducing emissions by 50%, optimizing the route and using hybrid vehicles. Perhaps this is something that I can bring to my organization as well. So the objective of this forum really is to inspire people and to get more people aware about climate change and really contribute to reducing or making this reducing climate change or reducing emissions, so that we can have a better place to live in. So thank you very much, Senior Brad. All right, so let me read the first question here. What business value can be reaped from sustainability efforts? Now, will your actions on climate change actually drive growth for Unilever? Senior Brad?
Yeah. So Unilever, we have what we call our compass, which basically dictates our business strategy for growth, and definitely climate action is an integral part of that. Yung business case for sustainability is about basically driving value through creating more growth, lowering costs, making sure that you have less risk in the business and more trust. Now, yung sustainability actually allows for brand differentiation, which is very important on FMCG. We have proven na yung mga brands that are able to address nga yung social and environmental issue are the ones with higher brand power. And we know that higher brand power translates to buying preference. Therefore, nabibili siya and eventually drives brand growth. Sustainability also helps in lessening the risk. Can you imagine the cost of reputational and regulatory risk that we face? And this is something that we are trying to solve by being a sustainable company. In terms of supply chain, having a stable supply of raw materials also addresses that. And then I think for, of course, operational efficiencies also is a benefit. And last, probably hindi nyo napapansin, pero I've hired a lot of people in the company, and most, probably not all, almost all, the reason why they want to work for a company like Unilever is not because of the brands. It's because of our sustainability track record. So sustainability attracts the best talents. No? It assures investors as well, and it helps in getting the support of consumer and government groups. So yun, considering all of that, that translates to a very high business value for the company.
Thank you, Senior Brad. So I can see Wimpy, Yusek Wimpy Fuentebelle is here with us. Hello, Senior Brad. Naka-raise yung hand mo. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just 2 points, no, brother. Thank you for speaking before us. I've heard your name when I was a junior, but it's the first time I heard you really speak to us and indoctrinate me.
Yep.
Good evening. First of all, we have an information education campaign in the DOE that could probably enrich your strategies as far as going renewable and enriching your energy efficiency. I'll send you the link. But my questions are two, no? First is, how did you come up with the measure or the numbers? How are you able to come out with all these as a corporation? Did you do it in-house, or is it aligned with a group of corporations? Or how do you make sure that these are also aligned on how we measure GHG emission with the international community? And the second one is, I'm particularly interested in how you come out with that concept of 100% refrigeration that is in towards I'm interested on that technology. So just those 2 points, brother.
Yeah, I think new metrics will always be a challenge, no? For an FMCG, ultimately yung measure namin of brand success is brand growth from sustainable brands, no? Brands that are doing its purpose, if it's growing or not. And we have systems in place basically that measures sustainability indices, no, and brand power, which we know drives penetration and brand performance. But specific to climate action, I think in more granular terms, we're measured against a number of social and as well as environmental commitments that we have made. So hindi siya one all, no? It's basically a consolidation of different commitments and targets. So for example, for plastic waste, we have a target of collecting 100% more than what we sell. And then the factories would have their own set of commitments as well on climate action. So various initiatives attached, and each and every market that we operate in, this consolidates to the total ambition of getting to that net zero. But I must admit, I think the challenge is to make sure that there's consistency. Kasi me not being a technical person, sometimes I struggle to understand kung bakit, for example, the factory is saying, Ed, itong initiative na to actually reduces our greenhouse emissions by X%. No? I would just say, I agree with you. I cannot challenge it because of that lack of understanding of the metrics. So that will continue to be a challenge. But the whole net zero is a global commitment of the company. And what we have seen is that I think companies that have already declared, at least for the Philippines, no, those that have already declared their ambition for net zero, nagkakaroon ng ripple effect. So for instance, Nestle would have its net zero roadmap commitment already. Ang PNG, meron silang environmental quality, no, as part of their citizenship program. Yes, kasi importante yung scale and the ripple effect, no, by being a leader in stable business. Once you start saying we're committed to this, local companies will follow suit. Global companies will definitely declare their own commitments as well. And hopefully we create that bandwagon effect, because you need that scale to make that create an impact.
All right, thank you, Senior Brads. Next question.
No, just to follow up on the refrigeration.
Sure. Yeah.
The second point, yeah.
Yeah, yung HFC, actually that's been an ongoing, kasi way back 2010, na-determine na if you were to look at yung 3 actions ng Unilever on climate action, kasama parati dyan yung refrigeration ng aming ice cream freezers. Kasi for example, Unilever is the global market leader of ice cream. I mean, Philippines were 80% of the ice cream in this country comes from us. So imagine all of those freezers. If it's not a green freezer, the impact it will create on the climate is really catastrophic. No? So we started long before, and basically it takes time kasi syempre may investment rin yan. But we're actually at the latter end now of the transition. In a few years, all the freezers that you see are green freezers already. Hindi siya HFC. So again, I'm not a technical person, pero I understand the HFC is something that's not acceptable. No? There are alternatives to that are acceptable for climate transition.
Okay, Brad. I'm just going to ask Sana if who supplied you these green freezers.
I'll give it to you offline.
Thank you.
I'm not top of mind actually.
Okay, thank you, Brad.
All right, thank you, Wimpy. All right. So the next question here is, in the current market landscape, are you seeing more and more companies in the Philippines applying climate transformation or sustainable supply chain management practices into their business? I think
like I said, like I said a while ago, some companies, big companies, have already declared their own climate transition plan. And I've told you about the ripple effect. I think not enough, especially I think a lot of the local companies need to follow suit. They're probably following suit in terms of the hot issue that they face. Pero yung on the bigger climate transition action, I think they still need to commit even more. But for example, when we announced that we will commit 100% recyclable, compostable, and reusable packaging, sunod-sunod na yan. Coke started saying the same thing. Nestle started saying the same thing. Even URC started saying the same thing. So important yung ripple effect. And we hope now the same effect will happen, committing to 100% reduction in emissions and net zero by 2039. I hope you see more companies declaring that. So far, I hear it from at least the big multinationals. I don't know, Yusek, whether naririnig mo yung mga local companies declaring this already. Honestly, from my end, I'm not hearing them as much as the big multinationals.
Yeah, it's more of Nestle. Ang naririnig ko talaga.
Nestle has been very vocal about it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question here. What will be the 3 biggest drivers of your efforts to get to net zero?
So for us, number one, yung integrating yung greenhouse gas reduction roadmap dun sa mga key materials and ingredients namin. Hindi sanay yung mga supplier dyan. And there's an education task that you need to do. Kasi once we start saying na we will not accept your invoice if you don't have a greenhouse reduction roadmap plan, then they will probably start learning fast. Yung second, yung reducing emissions from logistics and distribution. It's 15% of our greenhouse gas footprint. And nag-commit na kami, for instance, way back. Sabi namin, lahat yung sales vehicles namin will be running on electric by, I think, 2030 is the target. That's dependent on whether there's going to be a supply or not. So, ang daming interrelated issues so that you need to address. And third, as I said, is moving our whole retail ice cream cabinets to green. We're lucky in the Philippines with the leadership of John Concepcion in Selecta, who's really a believer in this. Nauuna na tayo to 80-90%. Some countries probably is not there yet, at the low 20s, low 30s. But as a global company, you have to make sure that everything goes 100% green by a certain period.
Senior Brad, sorry, sabi ko I'm in supply chain, so I'm a bit I'm interested about that, yung electric vehicles that you're using. I don't suppose Unilever owns their own, they owns the fleet, right? So you're using a transport, a third-party transport company here.
Meron. Nasa pilot pa lang siya. Kasi nga may lack of companies who are into this kind of business. But hopefully nga, by declaring it, it will start people or entrepreneurs from basically getting their act together and forming something that's viable for companies to tap.
So, if I may share, Dom,
yes.
If I may share, Senior Brad, no, what the government is doing, let's say we have that e-mobility push for Filipinos to use electric vehicles. We are using the dedicated lanes as an incentive, a non-fiscal incentive, so that if you are 100% electric, you can use the bike lane if you're that small, or you can use that bus lane in EDSA. That type of strategy that we are pushing, no? Although it's not yet clear how we will go through with it with the MMDA and the PWH, because we are the DOE. It's different. It's a different department. What we are saying is we are pushing also for, we call this the green route. And these green routes, if there will be users, and we can come up with measures or numbers on how many will utilize this, we can allocate that lane for your logistics group so that you will become more efficient. So it's the first time I heard this, that you're interested in doing that. So probably we will pursue who are the other companies that would go with it and ask for the numbers and how many times they use the roads, so that we can calculate how many lanes or what if one lane will suffice. So yun lang, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek. Nakakatuwa no, yung mga the things that we're learning in this forum. All right. What do you think the biggest challenge will be in achieving your plan?
Yeah, so on the one side, I spoke to you about yung share of our emissions that is falling outside of our direct control, and therefore yung societal influence nga becomes very important. That's always a challenge for us, kasi influencing the wider society, becoming an integral part of our plan to achieve net zero. We need to shift the entire value chain, and also need to change behaviors of consumers. Hindi natin control kung anong washing machine ba bibili nila, inverter ba yan o hindi, anong type of product ba bibili nila, is it in a sachet or bottle. So to an effect, we just influence, and that will always be a challenge for us. Now, I think yung very real challenge that we have now is balancing the short term with the long-term ambition. So, for example, take COVID as an example. Yung primary concern now is how to survive this crisis, and yung effect on putting our sustainability agenda as less urgent nagiging issue. In my view nga, the truth is that we need to accelerate yung sustainability efforts as a result of the crisis. So a specific example is yung aming plastic collection. No? Yung pandemic did not allow us to do our community-based collection. Pero in principle, di ba, parang sinasabi na, meron kaming collect kilo kita. I think I saw Congressman Roman Romulo here. Sa Pasig, meron kaming collect kilo kita, wherein we try to incentivize the household to return their plastic waste, convert that into value para ma-collect namin at ma-convert namin into energy. Now, because of the pandemic, hindi namin siya magawa. But in reality, yung pandemic actually pushed us to look for safer alternatives via junk shop network. And now we're collecting actually faster than we were collecting pre-pandemic time, while still providing the much needed livelihood for thousands of informal waste pickers. So balancing that short and mid-term is a challenge for most companies, but I hope they see the bigger picture and not sacrifice the big picture because of a small term issue that they need to address.
Thanks, Brad. Brad, I actually read an article recently about this organization, Plastic Bank, and how they have a presence here in the Philippines now. Are you working with them as well, or?
Yeah, we're one of the first companies actually that they approached. Yeah, they're okay actually. I encourage you to engage with them. Ang kanila lang kasi was that when they entered, they were only concerned of the plastic rigids, meaning yung mga bote. Kaya ang problema ng Pilipinas yung sachet, yung flexibles tawag namin. Sabi namin yung rigids, yung mga bote, walang problema yan eh. It will find its way kasi may value yan eh. Bibilin at bibilin yan eh. That's why seldom will you see mga boteng nakalutang sa mga estero kasi talagang pinupulot yan eh. Sabi ko, if you can find a solution for a plastic bank for flexibles, then we will engage with you. So, I don't know. As of the moment, I think they're still sticking to their plan of rigids. Yeah, but if you have a problem with rigids, because that's still plastic, and you still need to address them, I do encourage you to engage with them.
Thank you, Senior Brad. So, next question. What is your position on offsetting? Sorry, ano ba?
Offsetting kasi ano yan eh. Nagiging ano siya, short-term solution, di ba? Meron akong may problema ako on our carbon emission. Bili na lang ako ng carbon credits. Now, I just want to highlight kasi na again, we want to achieve the target as much as possible through real emissions reductions rather than offsetting. Although we expect that some residual emissions will come up and might require a bit of balancing through carbon credits. However, sometimes the risk there is that offsetting kasi sometimes justifies or legitimizes yung business as usual growth in emissions eh. I don't mind. Sige, mag-emit lang ako kasi meron naman akong carbon credit to back it up eh. So we don't subscribe to that. We feel na carbon credit is just a way for you to make it to basically deliver it to 100% kung medyo kinulang ka pa. But you must do your main effort in trying to look for the improvements within your operations, within your entire value chain to address the carbon issue.
All right, Brad, the next question, I think this is something that you've answered through your presentation, but maybe just a quick recap. What are your key sustainable measures and how do you measure progress?
Yeah, like I said, yung ultimate namin, of course, is brand growth. But I think to be more granular, and specific to, I think, climate action. For example, I lead together with the VP for Supply Chain, yung People and Planet steering committee, where we try to drive our key pillars on climate action. Yung ultimate objective niyan is to basically become carbon neutral by 2039. And yung first ambition is to eliminate emissions from our own operations. And John will have a full set of targets and commitments across the supply chain function. So already I think we can boast that all of our manufacturing sites now are, as part of that steer ko, na-push na lahat ng factory namin to be powered by geothermal already. Our progress in 2021 basically is putting us well on our way to achieving and overriding goal that we have set for ourselves for 2039, which is net zero.
All right, so we also have some questions here from students who joined us. Senior Brad, how did your interest in sustainability start?
Okay. Ano to? Well, alam mo, yung company kasi, I think started the whole Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. I think we were the first company who said na a successful business integrates three things, no? Growth of the company na linked to its impact to the society, and at the same time reducing our impact to the environment. So actually that was when that was presented more than 10 years ago, it really opened the eyes of a lot of people, including mine. When I said, this is the company that we want to work for. Hindi lang siya profit sabi nga na, if you're not doing your part in terms of the positive social impact and reducing the environmental impact of what you do, then forget it. We're not going to be in this business. That in effect has encouraged me to put a career path towards that. Kasi nag-start ako sa sales eh. Then I went to media, but my real intent was to go to stable business part, which luckily I landed a few years back.
All right. Thanks, Brad. Itong next question is very interesting for me, no. For companies who will begin their journey on supply chain sustainability, now what recommendations or advice can you share to help them succeed in their goal?
Yeah, so the reason why I've shown that video on our winning with purpose, and the key person there talking is actually our GM, our chairman, si Benji. Because definitely this needs to be a top-down effort. No? Yung leader of the company must be 100% subscribed to it, fully committed before getting the whole organization behind it. So in our case, nga si Benji believes in it. He's our purpose champion. And yung articulation of the purpose and strategy behind was very critical. And once that was clear, we made sure that the ownership of that is shared by every employee. That's why we did an internal campaign na, this is my purpose too. Kasi kailangan lahat ng empleyado mo subscribes to basically the purpose agenda. It was, and basically align their own individual purpose to that of the company. So, yun, I hope you saw that in the video that we have shown. And I think in practical terms, the next steps naman is you need to be familiar with your own operations, doing your self-audit of your end-to-end value chain, identify the gaps, risks and opportunities, and on an ongoing basis, build yung capability and partnerships and the networks to make it happen. I mean, yun naman yung practical way. No? One is the people side, making sure that they're committed to it. The second part is the operational part and really going line by line, end to end on where the gaps are.
All right. So hindi sa akin nanggaling yung question, but I'm glad it was asked. No? So thank you, Senior Brad. Hopefully I can influence our GM, no, and the rest of the organization that I belong to. Anyway, yeah. Next question. I think this is the last one. But are all countries participating in this climate transition action? So is there strict imposition or disciplinary actions? I guess in the Unilever network, Senior Brad.
Yeah, that's when I say this is a top down. I'm not talking about the Philippines also. I'm talking about top down from our chairman, global chairman, Alan Jope. And this needs to be consistently done across all the countries where Unilever operates. And we went even beyond that. Kasi of course Unilever is a public company. We also made sure na yung stakeholders namin signed up to it. So in the last stakeholders meeting, itong climate transition action plan was actually presented. And we made sure na yung key stakeholders of our board, represented by the board, signs up to it as well. So definitely it's across the entire organization, across all the countries.
All right, Senior Brad. Sorry, I think there are a few more questions pala in the chat box. So let me just read again some of them. Or mga ano pala to, some are actually comments. So maybe you'll be interested to hear them as well, Senior Brad. So the integrated GHG roadmap of Unilever looks very good, even including suppliers and partners of the company in the sustainability effort. All right, so the question pala here is, has it been more costly to operate the company given the sustainability efforts, or did their OPEX reduce?
Alam mo, it's the cost of inaction will be bigger eventually than the cost of action of doing something now. Eventually, of course, the cost will be higher in the short term. as we have seen in a number of initiatives that are related to anything on related to sustainable business. But as you grow your scale and as you grow your capability, eventually costs will go down. I won't hindi naman I won't lie naman na of course you need to be a profitable business as well. And therefore for this to work, it needs to be viable. So I think for those of you or the companies who are getting into this at an initial stage, expect that cost will be higher. But we've seen that as you go along, it will become an integral part of your financials, and therefore it will become a viable option as it should be.
All right, isa pang comment dito, Brad. Very educational and very inspiring to start our own sustainability program, even at the personal and family level. So, buti, no? And basically, that's really the purpose of this forum, to inspire people. And sana, I saw, I think there were about 128 participants today. That was about the same number from the last session we had. But hopefully, this forum becomes, will become bigger, and hopefully more people will come and learn more about these efforts. All right. Senior Brad, that's all the questions I have here. Meron ka bang maybe a final message to all of us?
No, it's really more of I'm happy to be part of this effort. Sabi ko nga, yung two of my beloved institutions, Unilever and Upsilon, merging together under Upsilon Can. So that's really something that I'm so happy about and just willing to contribute. I hope you learned something from the session.
Yeah, definitely.
And encourage everybody to attend because this is a series of talks moving forward.
Thank you, Senior Brad. All right, so before we end, I'd like to invite everyone to the next climate action series, renewable energy opportunities in the Philippines, and our speaker will be Carlos Lorenzo Vega. I think he's from batch 98, no, anak ni Justin, no, may kabatch. So Norman, do we have a date for this already?
That's October 23rd, 9 o'clock in the morning, Philippine time.
All right. So hopefully we'll have more participants then. So Norman, meron ka bang gustong sabihin before we close the session?
Yeah, I hope this you talk will inspire you to take action and then go back to your organization, family, and then see what are the things that are in your control to lessen the impact on climate change.
All right, maraming salamat. So I guess with that, we will be ending our session tonight. Good night, everyone. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Yep.
All right. Thanks, guys.